soberness, and good health as they tackle these problems.
Right.
Yeah, UNIP came, tried, OMD came, tried, PF came, tried, and we have our new colleagues, and we wish them success.
Right.
So there's no need for excitement here, like the president HHR said. There's no need for honeymoon. You know what I'm saying? There are problems in the country has, and so this budget is presented on the backdrop of a mountain of problems: unemployment, high poverty levels, high inequalities, which is an emerging issue. Under Kaunda, we had a fairer society. We had, of course, under Kaunda, employment was fairly good, although we had the macroeconomic issues. Poverty was not as bad. Now we have the third problem, the inequalities. What is the inequality? When you have an economy which is not working for the majority, a few people become well off, those that are connected, getting tenders and so on, without any innovation, and then the rest remain without with little resources and something that comes their way. So over time, one of the dangers, if you look at some of the developmental papers on Zambia, is that the next danger, apart from the youth batch, I mean the huge number of youths, is the inequalities, where the majority become deprived. Now, the army of deprived people is dangerous for everybody. If I became the president tomorrow, it will be a danger to me. They are a danger to any sitting government. The youth batch are a danger to any sitting government. So we need to accelerate actions to ensure that we begin to deal with these problems progressively. They cannot be dealt in one budget. It's impossible. So this is a work in progress. But we must take the correct actions, month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year. You understand, eh? And so on and so forth. So at progressively as a country, beyond the political parties in power, they'll come and go. I mean, that's no brainer. But as a country, we must be having a particular progressive trajectory, economically and developmental wise. So concerning this budget, it's a difficult budget because the budget is being presented on the backdrop of two elephants in the room. I think I've heard from the previous documents, the outgoing government, remember, and some of the problems are older than even the outgoing government. For example, the issue of the government wage bill, which is eating away resources for actual service delivery. That has been a problem, even when I was in the parliament. So it's a decades, many decades old problem, where over time we spent a huge proportion of our budget on the government wage bill, denying resources for actual service delivery, and also compromising the conditions of key frontline workers in government, those that actually provide the actual services, not the bureaucrats. Who are these frontline workers? Our doctors, our nurses, our teachers, our social workers, our agricultural extension officers. I'm talking about people that at the front end of service delivery, who must always be there and must be adequate and properly remunerated because they're the game changers. But because of an expansive government, especially a huge bureaucracy, we have continued to have such a huge wage bill. And if you check the different budgets in the past 20 years, you will see that elephant has been there and growing. And now another one emerged. It was there before, the debt issue. We were forgiven debt by 2005, and it came down to $500 million from $7 billion, and we had that relief, and a lot of resources were released for actual service delivery. So the percentage, and I was privileged to be in Parliament when the things were happening. I came into Parliament in 2006, when now we had the biggest fiscal space for government, save for the huge wage bill. And therefore, government could allocate enough resources for education, for health, and for socio-economic development of our people, and the many schemes that are meant to lift our people out of poverty, providing infrastructure, to expedite economic activities.
Right.
But sooner than later, the debt again began to rise. In fact, by the time MMD left power, the debt was beginning to rise beyond the $500 million. And then during PF, it was accelerated, and we faced also an external problem. The PF administration, they pegged their borrowing on an envisaged increase in copper prices. Lo and behold, that plummeted and created a problem. And that's why one of the issues I want to discuss today is that we should not condition our budget to envisage high copper prices because of the external factors. And we cannot clearly predict the length of that boom. Okay, the period in which that boom will be. And this is one of the problems Zambia has, one of the mistakes Zambia has made over time. I'm talking about right from independence. Copper has become more of a curse than a blessing because it makes us careless. And we pay expenditure on envisaged copper boom. Which copper boom actually fluctuates, you know what I'm saying? Now, copper prices, over time are cyclical. They go up and down, and therefore it is very important not to condition our expenditure on the copper boom because we have no power on sustainability of that, because that is an external factor. We have learned from the oil producing economies. One of the emerging economies in the oils, and that time I was the chairman of the budget in Parliament, and I interacted with many of these friends from the oversight point of view. Ghanaian friends, Angolan friends. Remember the new kids on the block in the oil production in Africa, save apart from Nigeria and Libya. We had the new kids coming on the block. Of course, Angola has been producing oil for some time, and then Ghana had just discovered oil, and Equatorial Guinea. Okay? Yeah. During the boom in oil prices, Equatorial Guinea had the highest per capita income in the world. Equatorial Guinea, that poor country. And what did it do? The oil boom introduced carelessness and high expenditures and abuse. By the time there was a slump in the oil prices, most of the oil producing countries, especially the emerging ones, went into serious problems because they had pegged their expenditure too high. So as the oil boom was going up, they were also increasing the expenditure. But here is a catch. The expenditure remains inelastic. When the revenues collapse, expenditure is very difficult to collapse. You cannot, for example, just lay off people in the public service to reduce the wage bill. Even the laying off itself requires paying terminal benefits, isn't it? Yeah. And you cannot reduce salaries of people in the civil service. You understand, eh? Yeah. And therefore, it is very dangerous. And we have been making mistakes beyond the new government. We've been making this mistake, and that's the problem why copper has not. One of the reasons why copper has not benefited this country. Whenever we have a boom, it introduces abuse and higher expenditure. Whose expenditure remains inelastic. Inelastic means that when the copper revenues come down, the expenditure remains high, and therefore we begin to borrow. This is the problem we face, apart from other issues around mining investment, which has been affected by the policies around mining. Because this economy was founded on mining, by the way. Yeah. So I'm starting with the mining because this economy was founded on mining. Yeah, exactly. The very first infrastructure, key infrastructure that came in this country, the Johnson Railways, the Cape to Cairo project, and so on, was meant basically to how the copper from the copper belt and the Solwezi, the first mines. So this economy was founded on mining. It's such a blessing, but we have not used mining to leverage on the greater economy. Now, mining is important. Growth in mining is important because it is a trigger to diversification. It gives you the forex, and therefore strengthens your kwacha and makes you competitive, and therefore makes it easier for other sectors to reboot At the moment, you need a strong currency, a strong kwacha, for agriculture to work, so that fertilizer prices are lower, so that the fuel prices is lower. Yeah. So mining sector remains a very important sector, but the way we relate it to macroeconomic stability and progress always must be thought through. There are enough good examples now. We must not make mistakes, because some of the mistakes we are making, first of all, some of them were made before. Others were made by other countries. We have enough lessons learned at home and abroad not to continue making mistakes. Botswana, a Cinderella country at independence. There's a book when I went to Botswana recently, the memoirs of Ketumire Masire. The title is either brave or foolish. That's the title. What did it mean, brave or foolish? Is that they were asking Saserese Kama, the first president of Botswana, founding president, the father to Yeni Kama, and his lieutenant Masire, that why do you want independence? This country is not viable. Just remain a protectorate of Britain, so that we help you. But when these guys got independence, they applied the right lessons, the right economic framework. One of the things Botswana did, they never conditioned their budget to the diamond boom. So when they have a boom in diamond prices, they never raise their budget. So whenever diamond prices went extraordinarily high, they never increased the expenditure. The expenditure continued in a straight trend line, whereby when they had a boom in diamond revenues, that extra went into, it became a surplus. So Botswana, the last time I read, just in their golden years, for about 16 years, they had a continuous budget surplus, continuously for about 16 years. And that's why Botswana is the only country in the region here which has the highest sovereign wealth fund. The Pula Fund by 2000 was $6 billion that every year they were saving money. Here, we dry everything. Copper price goes up, we also begin to drive VXs and so on. I could even see the government fleet of vehicles going up. When the copper price is going up, you are changing from a Crown to a Prado to a GX to a VX. Next time people start flying by helicopters, you understand? And then when the copper price drop, the expenditure, like you raise the salaries and everything, and you employ too many people, you expand the government. When the copper prices drop, then you are in a crisis. So some of the actions that are done at a particular time has ramifications over years.
Right.
Do you know some of the problems we face today were wrote 50 years ago? Some were wrote 30 years ago.
How can we correct those mistakes that you've talked about?
Evidence.
I think I'm glad.
Evidence. First of all, Peter, Innocent.
Yeah.
Let us be sober.
Yeah.
This country over years has accumulated enough institutional memory. You have experts in all fields today to deal with our economic problems within the Zambian nationality.
Yeah.
Yes. You want geologists, they are there. Some here, some abroad. Look for them. You want economists, they are there, here and abroad. Look for them. You want people working in government before, they are there. I meet, for example, the former UNIP stewards. UNIP was a powerful machine. They made their own mistakes, but you see, even their mistakes were genuine. UNIP, as the ruling part at Freedom House, had the research bureau. I had the privilege of meeting some of they're still alive. Some of the people who worked in the research bureau. Oh my goodness. What a fantastic Zambians, MMD came and they chased them. Some of them went to work in the neighboring countries. The key engineers that worked in Botswana were people who were chased from here, including the former MD of ZESCO under UNIP. You know, you go to Namibia, the key planners, economic planners, they went there and they began to help those economies. And today, they are outshining us who are the first producers, the pioneers in the region. So we have enough resources. Perhaps what we must do as a country, let us depoliticize development. Yeah? Elections finished on 12th October. What we are doing here should not be an electoral contest. Okay? Yeah. So as I came here, someone on my Facebook, a friend said, no, don't talk about 2.8. I said, I mean, that's irrelevant. You understand, eh? Elections ended. We must not even talk about 2026, because the moment you start talking about 2026, okay, no, me, I will win as myself, or ruling party, I will retain power. You are politicizing development.
You divert from
because
the
now
issues.
you become short term. Now, some of the decisions that you need to make or to mend this economy will make you unpopular. Because you want to win the next election, you sacrifice the long-term progress of the country on the altar of re-election, or as well as to be elected. How I wished that as a country we can put aside the politics and engage on issue-based politics. Let the excitement die down. We have problems, okay, as a country.
Right.
Recent ones, old ones, 5-year-old problems, 10-year-old problems, 15-year-old problems, 20-year-old problems, 25-year-old problems, 30-year-old problems, 35-year-old problems, 40-year-old problems, 45-year-old problems, 50-year-old problems, 55-year-old problems. They are here. And through this accumulation of these experiences, surely we can craft an economic and a developmental trajectory that can put this country on a path of sustainable economic growth and development.
And that's one. Now, my question.
And sometimes we must do that. Sometimes, wait.
How can we sustain, our mining sector? I'm glad because you've given a very long history. Comparing to how we have managed our mines in this country,
maybe Innocent.
Mineral resources,
I appreciate Innocent.
and the other countries. But the question is, Mr. President, how best can we, sustain the mining sector and utilize these resources to our advantage? Because we've been talking about these issues.
I will explain that. Perhaps Innocent, let's tag that.
Right.
Let me begin with the overall picture of the budget. Then we can go sector by sector.
Yeah.
We can deal with mining, the key sectors, in agriculture, tourism, and so on.
I'm more interested in the reforms
exactly.
in the mining sector.
Yeah, but I want to talk about the budget overall.
Please.
The overall picture we see in this budget is that the budget is premised on two pillars, which themselves are not so reliable, because they have a bigger external component which we may not have control. Yeah, the budget is premised basically. I'm talking about a budget that has been increased. Yeah, the increase in the total budget is unprecedented. It's quite huge. Now, that unprecedented increase is not because we have enough resources, but is premised on two things. Number one, on borrowing. Okay? Okay? Though it's a little bit smart borrowing. Yeah, because it's a concessional loan and paid over time. In terms of the quality of the loan, it's a good one. But still more, this country has an elephant in the room, which is the huge debt. Now, this budget is premised on borrowing, okay, one pillar. But the other pillar is on envisaged increase in the copper prices. Now, all these are external. and we don't have 100% control. Anglo-American left KCM thinking that the copper prices will be down for many, many years. They left it, they abandoned us, and the people pleaded that they stay. They left. A few years later, Vedanta came and made a fortune. A fortune.
Right.
A global fortune on KCM. Why? The copper prices cannot be relied upon, especially that we have no control of the fluctuations. Yes, there are electric cars coming. Yes, with that, yes, we expect the copper prices to go up. And but we don't know at what point copper price can slump.
Sure.
Yeah, because copper, by the way, copper you can recycle. Eh?
Sure.
Do you know the steel that they are making in Kafue? It's recycled. Kafue steel makes a lot of steel, even exports. But they have not mined any iron ore. While they have iron ore in Nampundwe, in Mumbwa there, they have not ironed. They have not, mined. They have not mined any iron ore. They are making steel through recycling. And therefore, they will reach a point, I'm just making some assumptions here,
Indeed.
that while there can be a high uptake of copper, the developed countries have even a stockpile. Don't know how much stockpile, because those are state secrets to them. You cannot know the stockpiling of copper in China and so on. So these people could be stockpiling copper, Japan, China, and other countries. And secondly, copper has a high degree of being recycled. I think so. If steel can be recycled, I think copper is even easier to recycle. So I'm not saying that copper price will come down. We have no full control of the length of the high copper prices. Here is a danger when you raise expenditure. You have seen here, the budget normally, the overall budget rises principally because of the expenditure side. And then you raise the revenue to finance the expenditure. As much as possible, expenditure must be strategic and it must remain at bare minimum, unless you are raising expenditure to reboot the economy, which is our main issue now, because we need economic stabilization, recovery, so that it begins to grow properly.
What would be the way forward? You know,
so those pillars. So because of that. I want to finish on that. Yes, but we are analyzing. There are lessons we are learning from this budget for the next budget. This will not change our life. It just begins to change something. So the degree of change of the situation in Zambia on this budget could be a small percentage. But we are saying that we continue to learn. By the way, this is a proposal. It's not as approved.
Indeed.
So it is correct that we have a critique of this budget proposal. And the idea of the budget now, getting into parliament, and now getting on the bigger parliament, which is now emerging, so social media. Because now the social media is bigger than the parliament now. Is that the government listens to the bigger voices, and if possible, begin to adjust. Okay? Now, the high expenditure sides, if you continue to raise it, and tomorrow revenues become a problem, it is difficult to bring down the expenditure. So you create a future deficit. For a little while, the next 5-10 years, you can be celebrating. But a celebration at the expense of a future deficit. And our friends in Botswana have taught us, even infrastructure. Do you know that by 2000 in Botswana, most of us were dust roads. When I was working in Namibia, because Sisike Road was very bad even that time. Before President Mwanawasa's government did it, but poorly. Again, it went away. When I went to Namibia in the mid-1990s, the Sisike Road, Kasungwa, was very bad. So when you are going into Namibia, we used to use Botswana, use the other border between Botswana into, between Botswana and Namibia. So you go into Botswana. It was a dust road. from that other border, to Wenela border, right up to Kasani was a dust road, but well maintained. They were very careful. At that time, they already had over $6 billion in dollars in the reserves, okay, in the Pula Fund. But they still saw it fit not to offload money carelessly. First, it was to have certain level of macroeconomic fundamentals, the reserves, the strength of the currency, and all these fundamentals that speak to the health of the economy. So until the economy became healthy, then towards 2000, after 2000, that's when now they put their billboards, your money at work, but carefully. So I thought I should raise those 2 points, that the budget must stand on strong pillars, not on pillars that you may not have control over time. Not on that, on pillars that can create a problem tomorrow, because those pillars might collapse. And then in the next 15, 20 years, you find yourself in problems because of the way you pitched your financing.
Just like we are today, you know, we've been told that we're in problems because our reserves, you know, they are empty as we speak right now. You know, and the question is, Mr. President, is that how best can we ensure that the issue or the appetite of wanting to sustain our economy or based on borrowing monies, how can that be stopped?
First of all,
from your preamble, you did mention that this country has got a lot of mineral wealth. You just talked about. You talked about Mozambique, which you only picked one mineral wealth that I heard from you. You know, but Zambia has got almost everything that you can talk about. At what point or for how long should we wait when you're going to turn around these resources to our advantage and stop borrowing, if we can?
First of all, I must say this, there's nothing wrong to borrow.
Right.
I think you just borrow within sustainable means. Sometimes it is necessary. But do not breach the threshold. There are thresholds. Borrowings against GDP ratios. So there are ratios that are already set up. Our friends at the Treasury, they know those. So don't breach that.
Right.
Okay? The economy is like a human body. The blood pressure, there is a particular, the moment it goes beyond that, then you have high blood pressure. It drops below that, you have low blood pressure. Just like temperature. And therefore, there are health parameters for the economy. And these parameters are documented. They are not only for Zambia, they are now universal. The ratio of GDP, the ratio of debt to GDP. You understand? And all these, there are these ratios that indicate a healthy economy. Our economy is not healthy because most of these parameters are of the recommended thresholds. So the economy is sick. And when an economy is sick, first you must stabilize it before you begin the actual treatment. So I thought I must give that introduction. Then perhaps we can go to the question you asked. I stopped you, the mining sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to answer the mining sector?
Yes, please.
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. President.
This economy, by and large, is funded in mining. It's basically a mono economy. When you look at the generation of forex, the biggest component of our exports is copper. The non-traditional exports, they are quite small. Non-traditional exports means exports outside copper. You know why they are called non-traditional? Because the traditional, the old exports is the copper. So anything outside the copper becomes a non-traditional. It means emerging exports. Our mining sector, Innocent, over the years has been bedeviled by inconsistencies. First of all, poor policy. Even when there are poor policies around the mining sector, there's lack of clarity and inconsistent and therefore unpredictable. Now, mining is expensive and risky. It requires long-term planning. Now, when you have an environment in a country, in mining, whose policies sometimes is poor, is unclear, is inconsistent, is unpredictable, then that alone does not attract investment. Right. Now, the mining sector, just like other sectors, has suffered even policy extremes. This economy at the very beginning, remember when at independence, the colonialists, the British handed over this country with huge reserves. Okay, of course there was also a lot of deficits. There was no infrastructure and so on, because during the Federation of Region they were developing, Southern Rhodesia. So there were no proper schools. There was no university. Because Zambia's development during the Federation was not so much. Development was skewed towards Southern Rhodesia, just like Malawi also suffered the same. So yes, the UNIP government had an agenda to put up infrastructure, but you must always put infrastructure and peg your revenue according to, your expenditure according to the revenue streams. Don't strain the revenue to a point where you damage the ability of the economy to create revenue. The persona were not stupid to move in gravel roads for many years while doing the right things until they were ready. Now, came nationalization. The first 5 years of our independence, remember, we were a multi-party and a free market economy, and Zambia made a lot of progress. Then it became nationalization, where government, through this system, took over ownership of the mines. That itself killed incentive, because you need private sector partnership to maintain enterprise, innovation, okay, and also to stem out what we call political patronage. Right. My friend, cadres want to sit on the boards. It doesn't matter which party is in office. So the antidote to putting politicians away from running of business is to partner with the private sector who will not tolerate that. So under the UNIP regime, the mines were taken over, and you could see the copper production plummeting from 500,000 tons around 1973 to about to less than 300,000 by 1990. Poor mining policy. We dried away investment. There are two countries that are mining economies, Chile and Zambia. Now, Chile is a very interesting country. Chile, by geographical size, is almost like Zambia. Chile, by population size, is almost like Zambia. In 1973, the economic indicators and the development indices of Chile and Zambia were literally the same. So same geographical area, same population, more or less. Again, copper-based economies. Very similar. These were twins. Economic Siamese twins. What did Chile do? Under a dictator, Augusto Pinochet, who took over government, under a dictator, he embraced market reforms in Chile. In Zambia, went command, and we took over industry. In 1973, the copper production in Chile and Zambia were at par, all of them around 500,000 tons per annum. Chile, by the 2000s, copper production in Chile reached 5 million tons per annum. Zambia's copper production has actually not hit 1 million tons. If I can recollect properly, we've never hit 1 million tons. We were almost coming up before MMD left power. Now, because of just that right mining policy in Chile, the copper production went to 5 million tons, Zambia below 1 million tons, and you look at the economic and development indicators between now Chile and Zambia, miles apart. Zambia's economy still remains at GDP, say about 25 billion. Yeah? Chile, the economy, $200 billion. What's the difference? Policy choices. This country has suffered from a crisis of policy choices, and not even wanting to learn from the lessons already that happened. You look at the development indices between Chile and Zambia. You cannot even compare now. Employment levels, poverty levels, inequalities, and blah blah. Chile now has actually become a developed country. We have remained one of the poorest countries. All economies that are based on mining, not only mining, on the same product, copper. But in terms of mineralogy, Zambia even has more minerals. We have now, for example, the emerald sector. Now, when MMD came into office, when we liberalized, again we went to the extremes. Another extreme. So we have had a crisis of policy extremes, from total control to giving away shareholding. And therefore, you go now to these mining companies. We gave away shareholding to a point where government only has 15%, 20%. You know, literally, there's no mine now with these big mines where Zambia has more than 30%, and therefore we lose on the actual benefits like dividends. We can only get money from taxation if they do pay. Some of the mining companies have not reached tax-paying position. What did Botswana do in their diamond mining? Botswana. Wait before I even finish Botswana.
Yeah.
Botswana in the diamond mining, and the diamond mining never started under the white government there. It began under the black government. Botswana became independent in 1966, and diamond mining started in 1969.
Yeah.
1 year after I was born. Botswana went into a partnership with a private equity partner, De Beers, and formed the Botswana. De Beers, Botswana government, on a 50-50 joint venture, which has been running now for over 50 years. Botswana is a center of diamond trade in the world. Botswana is the highest exporter of diamond by value.
You can give
the right investment matrix that is tested. So you need an investor always strike the balance. We are extremists here. No, this is ours. Do you eat it? Then no, let's control it, or let's give it away. There is always a balance.
It's too more the issue. The investors that comes to invest in our country or in our mines, for example. I'm glad you've talked about the issue to deal with the taxation. You know, we've got some mines or miners that are, or investors that are not paying the taxes as we speak right now.
That's not their problem. Let me tell you.
Which is a critical component for me, because if an ordinary citizen really can be subjected to paying a tax, what about these foreign, or with the due respect I have, huge investors, big investors? Why should we babysit them all the time? I think this is a concern. And somebody actually even wrote up an article that if you look at this budget which we have right now, it's like we are babysitting these investors, most especially those in the mining sector.
First of all,
in terms of taxation.
First of all, that's a sweeping statement.
Yeah.
Innocent. For me, I don't blame investors.
Right.
Investors are here at our behest. On the tax regime, is also put it.
Yeah.
This issue of, I even heard one time we were at a workshop, mining companies are stealing, and the government official was telling us in that workshop, he was making presentation, the mining companies are stealing. No, in Kalumbila, the planes they fly with gold and so on. I told him, sit down. You are stealing together. There is no plane which flies from this country without customs. I mean, we are not children. It means you are conniving, you are getting money for you to ignore the gold that if they are exporting. So if Zambia has no capacity, you can outsource capacity, isn't it?
Yeah.
So taxation, my friend, if you don't have capacity, if capacity is evolving, you can access it. You understand, eh? So there is no excuse whatsoever. It's our problem. No, mines are polluting. Why don't you implement the environmental law? Come on, we are in charge. We are a sovereign country. We are independent. And then we are there in 24 October singing, stand dancing of Zambia, proud and free. Proud and free, you are complaining of mining investors who come at your business that they are stealing.
Exploit your people.
You know, so let's not, for me, badmouth mining companies. This is our problem. How come some of these same mining companies in other countries they pay? These mining companies don't only operate here. They are in Australia, they are in Latin America, and so on. So let's address our own housekeeping measures in our country. And also, our arguments on this mining sector must be informed, must be evidence-based. Mining is a sector that has the highest multiplier effect on the economy. Now, you don't see mining just from the taxation point of view. For example, the Minister of Finance has done something which I've been calling for, and all of us have been calling for, that we remodel the mineral royalty, make it deductible. I was here, I've said it many times here, you remember?
Sure.
Because that was wrong the way they had put it. We are making mining in this country unattractive. By making mineral royalty deductible now for income tax, the minister will lose almost $4 billion. But wait a minute, what is the benefit? If there is a rebooting of the mining sector and investment, first of all, exploration, investment, production, and exports go up, the kwacha, we earn more, forex, kwacha becomes strong. The gains will be more than the 4 billion. So you must always do a cost-benefit analysis to any decision. So is the minister right in making mineral royalty deductible? Yes, he's right.
Right.
Will there be a positive impact? Yes, there will be.
Right.
All factors kept constant. Will copper prices go up? Yes, it will go up. What will be the ramifications of that policy? We earn more forex. With other combination of other policies and regulations, our kwacha over time can strengthen. So, now, when the kwacha strengthens, you know what happens? What you have done in the mining sector brings benefits in agriculture, brings benefits in manufacturing, in tourism, in energy. The investment in energy, like the Batoka Gorge, which could be the biggest power station after the recent one made Kafue Gorge lower, but the Batoka one in Livingstone, in Chief Mukunis area, that project awaits a growing mining sector. Why? The mining sector is the biggest uptaker of power. These people who put power stations want to see the potential for uptaking that power, because it's expensive to put a power station. You could see. So one policy made you lose this revenue, but you overall you gain more, because that will be the beginning of rebooting the economy.
Right.
So when you see a particular policy measure, you must think through it, than just to stop there and say, okay, but he has lost this money. So I'm just thinking some things we agree. I mean, no one here is from the moon, this one is from Jupiter, what, we are from the same country. Some of the issues we agree, and they are not even a secret. These things we have been discussing, we were at the mining in Indaba, this issue was resolved. The mistake PF made was that they never implemented.
Right.
In the economic recovery plan, which was really a fair document, they never implemented. They were to call for a mining Indaba. There was a mining Indaba. I was one of the attendees at the mining Indaba, and resolutions were made that one of the game changers to reboot mining sector is the mineral royalty issue, which was under controversy. So Dr. Mususi just came in and just pressed the button, and you see already now announcements of new investments. Rio Tinto is coming and so on. Anglo-American is going to come. We need these investors. Okay? Then the issue of other taxes. There are other companies paying taxes. I mean, First Quantum Pace has been paying taxes. Right time when I was in Parliament, they pay corporate tax. The numbers are there. And sometimes we accuse mining companies of not paying.
Yeah.
The lack of development in this country sometimes is abuse of money and poor priorities. When I was the chairman of the budget committee, we went to Sorezi and we had a town hall meeting in the council. We wanted to relate the rates in Sorezi that are occasioned by the boom in the mining sector and service delivery in the council.
Right.
That time, the revenue, when mining was revived, the revenues in the Sorezi Council increased a tenfold, but without accompanying service delivery in that town. The potential of Sorezi Council in raising money is enough for the council to do a few kilometers of road per year from the council revenue. But you go to Sorezi, people are just moving in dust in their own country where they are mining copper, and the mining company are paying rates to the council. So we must not excuse lack of development to the investors, yet we are just careless people. That we have poor priorities in government.
Right.
That we can drive VXs in such a poor country. They laugh at us. You go to Japan, a minister drives a Toyota Crown, and in this country, which is not even 1% of Japan, size of the economy, you are driving a VX, and they're just saying, oh, okay. My friend, a minister in Japan drives a Toyota Crown. Now they are saying, no, here the roads are bad. The roads are bad for everybody. Why do you want to drive a VX alone? What about the Zambian people? So make the roads better.
Still,
even in Botswana here, they don't drive VXs.
Right.
I'm giving you an example. I'm not talking about UPND. PF drove VXs. They were wrong. UPND are driving VXs. They are wrong. A wrong is a wrong. It doesn't have a party color.
Right.
Now, there is an opportunity cost to these things. Now, not only that now. You go now to the parastatals, government agencies, the state only. They are also driving VXs. You go to their car parks, you'll be shocked. If a person came to this country and just went to a car parks of government and parastatals and flies out, he said, no, I don't give Zambia money. This country is too rich. As an indicator just from that. This is not about UPND. Can we change our culture, all of us, so that we save money, for the country?
The Mining Act as well, does it affect maybe the development in the mining sector?
No. There has been reviews on the mining sector. The problem in the mining sector is that we gave too much ownership. Okay? But we are a free market economy. That's a mistake already made. In the new mining projects, we must be careful that we don't give too much control to the first, so that we also benefit. Botswana, which owns 50%, the Botswana government, which owns 50% in the diamond mining, they don't only get taxes, they also get dividends. Now, dividends could be the game changer. You understand, eh?
Yeah.
You can't blame the mining companies. They never got the mines by force. We gave them. And the governments, my friend, are a continuous system. And we must honor those agreements. We believe in the free market economy. So just talk about the money. Now looking at the gemstone sector. This country, lack of order. You go to Rufanyama, where they are mining emeralds. What lessons can we learn in other countries mining gemstones, like Botswana, Namibia, South Africa? The gemstone areas are supposed to be restricted areas. They are restricted. If you go to Oranjemund, you go to the mines in Botswana, they are restricted areas. Because the gemstones are easy to purify. Right. Do you know that an emerald or a diamond, you can even swallow it. You can swallow. Then you travel to your village, and you carry millions in your stomach. I'm not telling just a story. It was happening in Namibia until they put scanners. You go on holiday, My friend here, is from Namibia, who is accompanying me here. This is a true story. I'm not telling you the story to be funny. People used to, swallow diamonds, and then you go for holiday, and then when you go there, it goes and it comes out, and you are 5 pieces of diamonds. You are done. It's more than your pension. You understand? Eh? Now you go to Fanyama. There's that confusion. All this manner of people. So we are supposed to secure that emerald area. One gate. Security fence, one gate for accountability. It happens in Botswana, in Tanzania. When they let Magufuli, they are talking about some Tanzania, it is expensive, we can make money. Here in this country, we just talk, no action. We can make money from Tanzania, it's expensive, like we make now money from, we can make money from emeralds. Here's the army to put a perimeter fence in the Tanzanite mining area. One gate. Accountability on the production, and therefore taxes now. You could tax because you know your quantity. Once you know quantities, taxation becomes easy. Right. Wait a minute. Yeah. The revenues from Tanzanite on government increased by 400%. The report is there. 400% by that measure.
We've got 5 minutes to go, but
only.
Indeed. Yeah, but something very critical for me. It's the entire budget that you've, analyzed right now versus the country's debt which we have. Can we come out from this situation?
No.
Because as much as we may be celebrating right now,
let me discuss some of the issues very quickly. Can I run through the issues since it's 5 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. First of all,
that's on the debt aspect.
Yes, the debt aspect, for example,
the budget.
The debt aspect itself,
yeah.
Yes, is quite huge. But I think the minister had very little leg room. Secondly, so that debt is partly to refinance the bond, which is smart. Okay. The $750 million bond is due this coming year.
Yeah.
And one of the expenditures here is payment of debt, and therefore from that borrowing he will pay with a cheaper debt, which is a smart financing.
Right.
Well, that is okay. I might not be comfortable with a myriad of expenditures that have been brought here, where you increase a number of these expenditures which have very little return. When you want to recover, you need to apply austerity. We must not move away from austerity. Okay? But maybe before we end, I wanted to discuss the issue of the CDF very quickly. Yeah. We all appreciate that money is going there. The administration of CDF must continue being at the council. You can't create a lot of cost centers, to start having. The constituency offices are parliamentary offices. Parliament is not part of the execution or implementation. It's unconstitutional. An MP cannot implement. You can only give priority projects. Leave the experts to do. And therefore, let this issue, the words can sit like they were sitting before.
I'm glad you brought up that issue.
They are sitting before. And therefore, the issue of saying,
I'm not cutting you, but
we'll be spending in the words. No, yes, the words will be sitting and sending the priorities to people who are qualified.
Yes.
At the council, they can still do that. Otherwise, we're going to create a crisis.
Please hold on to your thoughts.
Yes.
We had a member of parliament here on Sunday, and I want your reaction to that regards, by the name of Honorable Boman Lusambo from Kawoshi constituency. Who is against or is protesting against the increment in CDF from 1.6 million kwacha to 25.7 million kwacha.
I think I watched that.
He does not have enough manpower.
I watched that.
What lecture?
No, he didn't protest. Yeah. Maybe he didn't know how to put it. He didn't protest.
Right.
The issue is that at the world level, with that quantum of money, capacity will have problems. There are capacity issues there. Unless you want to have the biggest audit queries ever written in the history of this country. This is government money, it will be audited.
Right.
And therefore, CDF has always been there. It has been managed at the council. Improve the management at the council. What has increased is the money. So we must not bring other structures that are kind of experimental. We must stay away from that. The issue I have around CDF, we all appreciate the increase, but of course there are more responsibilities from it. Some of the responsibilities of the Ministry of Education have been taken to CDF, health, education, and so on. And therefore, this CDF now covers more things. The only thing on CDF is equity. You cannot give the same CDF to a rural constituency with 5 wards, fewer people, and a smaller constituency as a Kasemba, which is 24 wards, or Mpika, or Kazungula, or Namwala. You can't do that. You defy the principle of equity in the allocation of resources. On that one, if the government remains rigid, you tell me. You want to give the same CDF? Kanyama voters are 130, not just voters now. Let's use the voters. I don't know the population of the Kanyama. Let's use voters. In one constituency, voters are 15,000. So even the population there is lower. You are saying Kanyama is developed. Who told you? If you go to Kanyama there, apart from Los Angeles Road and the Kalushawalia, all the roads are muddy. There is no drainage. The per unit cost of infrastructure in Kanyama, in Mutendere, I mean in Munali here, and in Mandevu, is far higher than in my former constituency, for example, in Iwenga, where you just use a grader to do that. Here you need to pave, you need to put bituminous, or you need to put concrete roads. And therefore, there must be a formula for allocation of CDF. It cannot be the same in all constituencies. You know, in one constituency, I don't want to give names, 5 wards, meaning each ward 5 million. Namara, what about Namara? What about Kasungula? What about Kasemba? What about Mpika? These are huge constituencies. Then you are creating disparities in development. Therefore, the ministers, they conclude the budget. I appeal to them. I appeal to him, put a formula that takes a lot of these parameters into play, so that there is a better formula for allocation of resources, not uniform. You are going to, already some MPs are just afraid to talk in the ruling party. They are complaining that how can I get, you want to, bursaries, where you are going to use some of the money for bursaries for secondary school going children who are in boarding. Are you sure? So
you believe that all the same, the 25.7 million kwacha is not enough for CDF, right?
No. It's never enough. But as a proportion of the budget, it's only 2.3%. But even then, it's a good start.
Right.
But can we deal with the issues around it, the mechanics, so that we don't spoil a good thing, like the issue of equity. Equity is a principle in sharing resources. Even, when you do the provincial budgets, they are never the same. The budget for Lusaka province is the same as the Muchinga province. They are different. The budget for Southern province is not the same as the Western province. Go and check in the yellow book. It looks at the equity issues and also the demands and the reality on the ground. I thought I must say that because people are really excited and don't want to look at the finer details. And if we don't address that thing, this thing can create actually other problems. So administration, we must continue with a tested system at the council. You can employ project managers there. Just one to do this fund at the council. The wards will be sitting to put priorities. But the experts can do that like we were doing before.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. President, allow me to appreciate you for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think next time we come, we can talk about agriculture. We have done justice on agriculture.
Exactly.
Maybe we can come
there are a lot of sectors.
Discuss the other sectors of the
we'll
economy.
Still have you, I think, possibly within this week.
Extremely grateful.
Yeah,
extremely grateful.
Thank you so much. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much to you as well, the viewers, for your company. This program, my guest has been President Highvie Hambulo, of course, leader of the Party of National Unity Progress. Thank you so much to my camera person, Christopher. I appreciate you, the people of Zambia. Like I always say, may God bless Zambia, may God bless Mother Africa. Good night.
So here's how to pay using Airtel Money. Ensure your decoder is turned on and tuned to channel 1. Dial *778#, then select the option that says Make Payment. Select Pay TV, then select Muvi TV. Enter the 12-digit smart card number, then enter the amount you wish to pay. Enter the Muvi TV account number, omitting the dash before the last digit. Then select the amount you wish to pay.
For inquiries, call customer care on 0764 250055 or 0764 250052 or 0978 732 411 or 0978 732 412.
People's Choice on Muvi TV. Brought to you with the association of Airtel. Airtel, the smartphone network on Muvi TV. Brought to you with the association of Airtel. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Coronavirus, it is a virus very pandemic.
Matenda a coronavirus ndiyo